season were 62-40 overall. However, now let's hear it for this year's Indianapolis Indians. They did terrific. However, there are two split halves, split seasons. Jacksonville won the first half, the first 75 games. The winner of the second half will meet Jacksonville. Jacksonville had the best record of the 20 teams in the International League. The winner of the second half, and the Indians are battling for that spot right now, will meet Jacksonville in Jacksonville for a best-of-3 league championship series, the Governor's Cup. Now, what happened is, in 2021, 6 teams were added to our league. So it's one 20-team league. The divisions do not matter at all. So that we have to have the best record of all 20 teams, which Jacksonville did in the first half. So you can have a very good season. In the old format, 4 out of 14 made it, just like the major leagues used to be. You'd get in if you were having a very good season, either as a wild card or a divisional winner. But now, as well as we're doing, we're battling Scranton and Syracuse for the best record. So, and we have a 2-week road trip a little later in August, 6 games in Scranton, 6 in Syracuse, and that could be the defining moments of the season for us. So, a couple of baseball birthdays today, by the way. Joe Nuxall, who many of you listened to broadcast the Reds and watched as a pitcher as I did, born on this date, 1944, the youngest player ever to appear in a major league game at the age of 15 during the war. Born on this date, 1928. I'm sorry, he appeared in the game in 1944. What happened was, he's 15 years old. There was a lack of players due to the war going on. He got called to the big leagues. They put him in the game against the St. Louis Cardinals. He got the first guy out. The next guy got on base, but he got the next guy out. Looked in the on-deck circle and saw Stan Musial, and then the next 6 guys reached base safely. They couldn't get anybody out after that. So, and the other birthday today, born in 1890 on this date, Casey Stengel, the old professor. He was a good player, but he's in the Hall of Fame because of 12 pennant-winning years, 12 years managing the Yankees, 10 pennants, 7 world championships. And then he became manager of the Mets. They were so bad, the first year, 40 and 120. And he said, "This team has shown me ways to lose I never even knew existed." And then he talked about losing 120 games, and he said, "This truly was a team effort. We couldn't have done this with 1 or 2 players." Okay, get to the Indians in a moment. A former Indianapolis Indian passed away recently, and that's Bob Uecker. Bob Uecker played for us in 1960 and played in the big leagues, and a tremendous broadcaster. You know about him and how funny he was in the movie Major League and the light beer commercials. One story about Bob I'd like to share, because he had a set routine, but this was spontaneous, and that's why it's my favorite Bob Uecker story. He was broadcasting a baseball game with Al Michaels and Howard Cosell for ABC TV. And Cosell said something that didn't make much sense. Uecker tried to gently correct him, and Cosell got very upset. He said, "Very well, Bob, but you know you're being rather truculent." And there's dead silence. And then Cosell says, "Bob, you do know what truculent means, don't you?" And Uecker said, "Sure. If I borrowed a truck from you, that would be the truculent." So that's Bob Uecker. Well, our franchise goes back to 1902, and we're so proud of it. We opened Busch Stadium. It was Perry Field, and then Victory Field. And we opened that in 1931, and we opened this beautiful ballpark on July 11th, 1996. So we have such a rich history. And in the late 40s, we had a great manager named Al Lopez, who became a terrific major league manager and a Hall of Famer. And Al Lopez managed the Cleveland Indians to the pennant in 1954, and the White Sox to the pennant in 1959. The Yankees under Casey Stengel won 14 pennants in 16 years, and Al Lopez managed the 2 times they stopped the Yankees in 1954 and 59. 1961, Max Schumacher became general manager, an era of 3 straight championships, 61, 2, and 3. In the 1964 to 1968, the Indians had to play in the Pacific Coast League as the association disbanded after 1962. We were in the International League in 63. You know, Max gets a lot of credit, and deservedly so, and other people for what we did opening Victory Field and how beautiful it is. Bruce made a great point to me years ago, is that Max also deserves a lot of credit for running the team in the 1960s when you were dealing in red ink and things were not profitable. And so he kept everything going, and it took a lot of work just to do that. The 1970s, we won divisional titles in 1971, 74, and 78, all with the Cincinnati Reds as the parent team, but we didn't win any championships. Then in 1982, we won the American Association Championship, the first one in 19 years for us, first championship. It was great. We had a moment there I'll never forget, because what happened was we won the championship the day before Labor Day on Sunday. We fly home from Omaha on Monday, and people are off. We arrive about 4:30 in the afternoon, and there's Mayor Hudnut and a couple of hundred people greeting us as we left at the airport. It was a wonderful moment. And then we went on and we won a championship in 1984, championships 1986 to 89, all with the Montreal Expos, 5 in 6 years. The one constant during those years was Razor Shines, who was there for all those championships, the most popular player in our history. And Razor, as you know, was honored here last year. It was wonderful to see him and former Indians back from the 1980s. Only twice in our history have we had a day for a player. Frank Sigafus in 1933 and Razor Shines in 1993 when Razor retired. The 90s, we won a championship in 1994 with Cincinnati as the parent team. Refuse to lose was the motto of that veteran team that really had tremendous confidence in a game that is so hard to play, and confidence levels always are wavering. We won a championship in 2000 with Milwaukee as the parent team, and, well, that was our last one. We came very close in 2017. We had a nice run when Pittsburgh became the parent team, 2005 and 6. We made the postseason. And then we had a really nice run. We won the International League West in 2012, 13, 15, and 17. And in 15, we won our first round series against Scranton, swept them, played Columbus for the championship, the Governor's Cup. It came down to a 5th and deciding game, but unfortunately Columbus on a Saturday evening won that game and defeated the Indianapolis Indians for the championship that year. As we said, this year's team is really good. We have some real prospects in Bubba Chandler, who's pitching today. He has a great arm. Hunter Barco, a left-handed pitcher, who'll probably pitch tomorrow. He has really good stuff. The Pirates have done a better job with their pitching than position players in recent years. And of course, Paul Skeens, I say with a lot of pride, made 7 starts for the Indianapolis Indians this year. and he's absolutely sensational. He has everything together. Great competitor, terrific young man, discipline, great stuff. It's all there, and he's achieving great things. He did last year when he became Rookie of the Year, and he may be the Cy Young Award winner this year. His record is 6-8 because he hasn't gotten run support, although he's gotten much better lately. Bruce posed a great question a few weeks ago. Has any starting pitcher ever won the Cy Young Award with a losing record? And the answer is no. But hopefully, they'll continue to give him run support as they have his last few times out, and he will have a winning record. This is a really important time for the Pirates. The next, I would say, next 30 hours or so, because the trading deadline in Major League Baseball is tomorrow at 6 p.m. And the Pirates are out of contention. So they have some really good players that people are after, like David Bednar, the relief pitcher, who straightened himself out when he was optioned to the Indianapolis Indians. David Bednar, like Mitch Keller, former Indian, right-handed pitcher. And there are other players too, but the question is, I think they're going to trade Bednar, they may trade Keller too. They have to get some players, position players with some talent. That's really lacking on the ball club. So we'll see what these next 30 hours bring. There could be all kinds of moves made by the Pittsburgh Pirates. They'll trade a number of players too whose contracts are expiring, sometimes to get a marginal prospect just to get something. So we'll see what happens. Last year at this time, the Pirates were battling for a wild card spot, so they were not going to be trading a lot of players. But this is completely different. They're about 17, 18 games below 500, out of contention. Proud to say that a former Indianapolis Indian, Don Kelly, is managing the Pirates these days. Don is a terrific person, and his brother-in-law, Neil Walker, also is a former Indianapolis Indian. And Neil's sister, Don's wife, Carrie, was a great basketball player at Wagner College in Staten Island. A quick note about the 1950s I went by. 1954, Herb Score may have had the best year a minor league pitcher's ever had. For the Indianapolis Indians, he struck out 330 batters, he won more than 20 games, and he was on his way to greatness with the Cleveland Indians. He was Rookie of the Year the following year, but unfortunately a line drive in May of 1957 off the bat of Gil McDougall of the Yankees hit him in the head, and he never was the same, hurt his shoulder trying to come back. And Rocky Colavito that same year belted 38 home runs for the Indianapolis Indians, which to this day is still our club record. And despite having that great year, Rocky was back in Indianapolis the following season. It was hard to get to the big leagues then. 2 years later, Roger Maris led the Indianapolis Indians to the American Association Championship after a slow start. He belted 17 home runs, and they beat the Denver Bears, the New York Yankees AAA team, in the Association Championship, and then the Indianapolis Indians won the Little World Series as well. So a lot of great teams, great players. Randy Johnson, Hall of Famer. I mean, Randy pitched for us in 1988 and 89. We knew he had talent, but there are a lot of guys with talent who never harnessed their control. But Randy had control issues at first, but he did. And the big key was, and he went on to become one of the greatest pitchers of all time with 5 Cy Young Awards, over 300 wins. Nolan Ryan said to him, in your delivery, you're landing on your heel, the heel of your foot. Land on the ball of your foot instead. Randy said, okay, he did. His control improved, everything clicked, and then he went on to achieve greatness. He won 4 straight Cy Young Awards. It was so sensational. His teammate with the Indianapolis Indians was Larry Walker, And Larry Walker, like Randy Johnson, is a Hall of Famer. Larry had a really good year for us in 1989, then got called up and did great with the Expos, and then he went on with a lot of success at Coors Field in Colorado with the Rockies. 1997, won an MVP, and he hit 49 homers and batted over 350. He almost had that 50-350. The last man to hit 50 or more homers and bat over 350 was Mickey Mantle in 1956. So Larry almost achieved that. And Larry Walker and Randy Johnson were our first two Hall of Famers since Harmon Killebrew, who was inducted in 1984. Harmon briefly played for us in 1958. We've had two players who have been with us in three different parent teams. Lenny Johnston, whom some of you may have gotten to know over the years, made his home here, and John Nunnally. John Nunnally, more recent, played for us with Cincinnati as the parent team in 1998, with Milwaukee as the parent team in 2004, with Pittsburgh as the parent team in 2005. So that's an unusual thing, and that's an unusual twist. In a minute, I'll take any questions. We can do that for a few minutes. I mentioned Stan Musial earlier, and I also ought to talk for a moment about Victory Field. You're going to go on this tour, and they'll tell you everything. But we opened it July 11th, 1996, and it was a beautiful night in Oklahoma City. Texas's AAA team was the opposition, and we lost the game. And Rick Helling of Oklahoma City was the winning pitcher, a guy from North Dakota who went on to pitch in the big leagues a long time. We also happened to lose the final game July 3rd, 1996 at Busch Stadium. So we lose those two, and I said to our manager, Dave Miley, you just can't win the big one. I can't repeat what he said to me after that, but in any event, and the ballpark is so beautiful, and one of the biggest keys of everything was when Max Schumacher negotiated the lease with the city, and he said, we'll pay for everything. Talking with the Capital Improvements Board, we'll be responsible for all the maintenance and all the upkeep. At Old Busch Stadium, the city was responsible for everything, and things didn't get done as quickly as they should have gotten done. So that was a big, big key in why this ballpark looks so beautiful, 29 years old, because of the wonderful job of maintenance that the Indianapolis Indians do. We had the AAA All-Star Game here in 2001, the 5-year anniversary of Victory Field. It turned out it was July 11th, 2001. And, we have a lot of people who use Victory Field for other events besides baseball. For instance, my wife Robin and I celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary with a party a couple of months ago here at Victory Field. So many people use it for other things too. I wanted to tell you this quick story about Stan Musial. When you're feeling real good about yourself, Stan Musial set a major league record with 5 home runs in a doubleheader against the Giants. And the great thing was, Stan's son, Richard, who's 12 years old, was in attendance that evening in St. Louis. And when you're 12 years old, you know what's going on. So Stan could not wait to embrace his son afterward, having achieved an incredible feat. 5 home runs in a doubleheader against the Giants. So Stan meets with reporters, showers, walks outside the Cardinal clubhouse, spots his son Richard, and Richard said, "Dad, the Giants sure have a lousy pitching staff." So no matter how well you're going, you can be cut down to size. Anybody have any questions or any comments on it? Yes, sir.
Just for fun, what do you think about the biggest crowd in professional baseball history this Saturday night?
Yeah, I have a friend who's going there into Bristol, Tennessee. They're setting up, the Reds are playing the Braves, I believe?
The Dodgers.
The Dodgers?
No, you're right, the Braves.
I'm not sure. I think it might be the Reds and Braves. It would make sense for the Braves being in the South. And so that's a wonderful thing. And
First
when they,
Major League Baseball game in Tennessee, which is
Yeah.
interesting too.
right, and that's a terrific thing. And you know, they've had the Field of Dreams game in Iowa too. So it's good to see things like that. I don't know what, you know what now they say the capacity is 80-something thousand, I think I heard.
They've sold like 83,000 tickets.
Now, when the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, they played in the LA Coliseum before Dodger Stadium was built from 1958 to 61. That held like 97,000 people. If you check some of the attendance figures from the 1959 World Series, the White Sox and Dodgers, games 3, 4, and 5 were in Los Angeles. I think they may have had like 90,000 or some odd thousand people or something like that. But this is going to break a regular season record, I know that. Cleveland had a record that said like 80-something thousand in Municipal Stadium in Cleveland. And that opening day they did great. The next night there will be 2,000 people out there.
Howard, how important to the game was Carl Erskine? And did you meet Carl Erskine and his inspiration for us?
Carl Erskine was a great friend and a broadcast partner of mine, and was just an absolutely wonderful man. Pitched for the Dodgers for 12 years. In the 1950s, there was 7 no-hitters thrown in the National League, and Carl threw 2 of those 7. And he won 20 games one year. He set a World Series strikeout record in 1953, breaking Howard Ebke's record in 1929. Then Sandy Koufax and Bob Gibson broke the records after that. But Carl was so involved in starting Special Olympics, and it was wonderful to spend so much time with him. He was really just a great, great man. I'll never forget, you know, his son Jimmy worked at Applebee's, and Jimmy had Down syndrome and they were told when he was born he might live to his mid-30s, and Jimmy lived to his early 60s. But we were filming a TV show at Applebee's where Jimmy was working, and I was interviewing Carl, and I said, Carl, for this next segment, it'll be about Jackie Robinson. Let's go about 4 minutes. So I asked Carl the question. Carl starts speaking and elaborating and going on, you know, and it was just wonderful. And he finishes up 4 minutes on the nose. Looks at me and said, Howard, you get paid for this? So I could talk about him forever. Any other comments?
How many games have you called?
I just had my 7,000 a few weeks ago. I called 3 for the White Sox, 3 for the Mets, and 3 for the Yankees. So it's neat. It's a lot of fun. That's my broadcast partner, Andrew Kappas. So it's a lot of fun.
I've got a question about the young players. Where do they live? Do they set up?
A lot of them live downtown now during the season. That was not the case years ago. We have position players who are veterans and good AAA players this year. The prospects are with our pitching staff in Bubba Chandler and Hunter Barker. But we have a lot of veterans, no AAA rookies, veteran position players, and most of them in this day and age live downtown. Yes?
During an interview, have you ever found yourself speechless?
I don't think I found myself speechless, but I'll never forget an interview that was a non-baseball interview. 1982, I worked as a radio network reporter my first 15 years in the off-season here. And Penn State is playing Notre Dame, and the winner of that game is going to the Sugar Bowl to meet Herschel Walker in Georgia for the national championship. This Penn State Notre Dame game is in South Bend, and I'm covering it, and had a lot of work and all that. Well, Penn State defeated Notre Dame. So after the game, in the press conference, we're trying to get Joe Paterno to make a comment about going up against Georgia for the national championship, but he wouldn't do it. Just said, I'm just thinking about this game now. So then I go in the locker room, the Penn State locker room. I run into their place kicker, a man named Nick Gancitano, a young man who had had a good day, 3 field goals. And I just asked him what I feel is a routine question. I said, Nick, you're going to go up against Georgia for the national championship. Any thoughts? Just hoping to get a sound bite of 15 or 20 seconds. And he said, let me tell you something. I think Georgia is overrated. And I don't think Herschel Walker's all that good. And I think we have a running back named Kurt Warner who's much better. Well, every radio network in this country bought that interview from me, and it turned out he was right in that Penn State defeated Georgia, and Kurt Warner had a much better day than Herschel Walker had. But I'll never forget that, because I'm asking a routine question, just hoping to get any kind of answer, and I got something extremely controversial. I can't think of that happening on any of the pre-game and post-game shows we've done over the years. Nothing really stands out. I remember one time at a Star of the Game interview, we're talking to a player, a visiting player. We interviewed the Star of the Game no matter what team back then, and the visiting team had won, and they said, okay, thanks, and we're going to try to do it again tomorrow. And we said, we'll see about that. And they didn't do it tomorrow. So, I've interviewed a lot of people. Pete Rose, Bud Selig, so many people. I go on and on about all the bad NBA and NFL players over the years with the Pacers and Colts, IU, Purdue. Here's a funny one from Lee Corso, and Bruce was attending IU at the time. You remember in 1981 when USC came in to play Indiana in football? So USC comes in. It was Corso's 9th year as coach. Anyway, USC beats the living daylights out of Indiana, scored over 50 points, and we're talking to Lee Corso, Indiana's coach, post-game. And Lee Corso said, when I took this job 8 years ago, I promised you I would bring a Rose Bowl team to Indianapolis, and today in USC, we brought a Rose Bowl team to Indianapolis.
What character of a good player? For all your experiences, what characteristics of a great player are there besides obviously talent? But is there humility? Is there teamship? What do you think?
I think one of the most important things is discipline. Because you have to, like Earl Weaver said, the Orioles manager, this isn't football. We do this every day around here. You know, you have to be able to perform every day. You know, football, you perform once a week. You work hard in practice during the week, but you don't play but once a week. You have to be able to do it every single day. And a lot of guys can't do that. So I think the discipline to be able to do it every single day is important. Players are not as humble as they used to be. I mean, bat flips and all that stuff, which I personally don't care for, but some people like. They're not as humble as they used to be. The ability, the eye-hand coordination has to be special, especially for a hitter. You know, 99% of the population does not have the depth perception to be a good hitter. I mean, you need some eye-hand coordination to pitch, but it's different. There are more people in this world with good arms who have the potential to be pitchers than they do to be hitters. For instance, maybe I've asked 10 managers over the years, at least 10. I'm going to give you a choice, I say. I'm going to give you a good pitching coach or a good hitting coach. Which will you take? And they all answer quickly, unequivocally, a good pitching coach. So there's more you can do with a pitcher. It's more, you can do things with a hit or two, obviously, but it's more innate. Yes?
What's the average time frame for, someone comes up to AAA, they're not called up to the big club? What's the average time they're going to stay here in this club or be traded away?
It depends on their age, first of all. If they're still a prospect, if they're on the 40-man roster. So those are things that are very important. And so, it could be several years. The guy I enjoyed watching so much, because shortstops are so special, was Ronnie Oster. And Ronnie Oster was a phenomenal shortstop. Unfortunately, he never got to play it in the big leagues because David Concepcion and Barry Larkin were ahead of him, and he played second base for 11 years with the Reds. But Ronnie Oster spent 3 years here in Indianapolis. He didn't have to, but he did because the Reds had David Concepcion, and they didn't want Oster to sit on the bench. So you can spend several years if you're blocked, even if you're talented. Although I'll say, in this day and age, and Chance Summers in 1978 had the single best year I've ever seen of any player here in Indianapolis, hit over 360. But in this 34 homers, in this day and age, you get to the big leagues quicker than you ever did before. One reason is injuries, another is a lack of patience, and they move players much more quickly. And that's why years ago you had to know how to play the game properly to get to the big leagues. Now you have to just hit or pitch and you get there. Bruce, is there anything you want to say or anything you want to add?
Good now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? Yes.
Some of the local legends, or the recent legends that passed away. Did you ever come across Ryan Sandberg or any?
Yes,
or
yes.
either of those?
I'm glad you brought Ryan up. He managed Lehigh Valley in our league. He also managed the Iowa Cubs, but they weren't in our league. But Ron managed the Phillies AAA team, Lehigh Valley, in our league, and I got to know him those 2 years very well. Very nice man, very pleasant. And we actually brought him to Victory Field about 12 or 13 years ago, signed autographs, and really enjoyed the time I spent with him. And he's one of the greatest second basemen of all time. I'll tell you something else interesting. It was so sad what happened. The cancer spread about 2 months ago, and he's obviously not doing well. But he had a reunion with guys with whom he played. They met at a location, and with guys he played with in the 1980s with the Cubs and the 90s, and he had such a wonderful time. And he talked about that and how much that meant to him. So you never know how you can impact somebody by saying something nice or doing something nice for them. Thank you all very much. Great to see all of you.
Thank you so much. We didn't go to 1 o'clock, but thank you so much for being here again. You are just so knowledgeable. Anything we can ask you, you've got details on everything. So thank you so much.
You don't have a cure for baldness, right?
I do not. I do not.
I don't have the answer for that.
Howard, what do you do to develop that memory?
I really think I was born with it. Now, the other side of it is I have an awful sense of direction. So I was born with a good memory, but I have an awful sense of direction. So
Gotcha.
I think it's mostly innate.
Okay, so you've been associated with Kiwanis for a long time. So we'd like to ask Bruce and Howard, come on up. So honorary membership is a special recognition bestowed by Kiwanians upon individuals who have made exceptional contributions or demonstrated outstanding achievements. And we're going to present you as honorary members of Downtown Kiwanis Club today. We're so thankful for you and Max, of course, for all you've done for Indianapolis and Kiwanis. And so we would like to present to both of you honorary membership into our club. Howard?
I'll just say, Kiwanis has always been very special to my dad. It was back in the day when it was a Friday lunch, it was just written in on his calendar. That was where he was going to be on Friday at lunchtime. And then later on, still attended very regularly. Obviously not in a position to get to Kiwanis the last few years with his health challenges, but it's been fun for me to meet a lot of people through Kiwanis that he knew and that have become friends of mine as well. So appreciate very much being on this way today.
Well, this couldn't happen to two nicer people, so thank you so much.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much. Thanks to all of you.
So,